we're live, brother. How you doing, man?
Hey, I couldn't be any better. You're less than 10 days from actual football game. It's crazy because I was actually on Twitter a while ago and I was watching Tennessee's hype video. Josh Pate put it up there because he was at the start of that. He was like, anytime you can be at the start of somebody's hype video, this is pretty cool. And hell, I was getting excited off of their damn hype video. That's where we're at, man. We're 9 days away from actually, foot to ball to kick off a game. I know you got something to say, Jeremy. Go ahead, man.
No, I'm just excited, just as you are, because like we've seen four players in the last couple of days. We've seen Steve Sarkisian go on Monday with his media availability, come on today with another media availability. It just tells you as things are getting closer and closer together. University of Texas is releasing a lot of stuff. It just lets you know that, like you said, we are so close to kickoff, and I can't be like you more fired enough to see what this team looks like, because every press conference you hear, we're working hard. The culture's great. It's a complete turnaround from where we started last year. I'm just ready for all these great things that are said in the offseason and all these improvements to be put into fruition. And again, this show is going to kind of show, 21, the good, the bad, and the ugly, what we did well and what we need to continue, what we need to improve on for this team to get off that 5-7 record, 3-6 in conference, and get closer to that double-digit win total that we think. Again, we're 8-4, 9-3 guys at this current point, but we, like Josh Pate, the ceiling is 10. Let's see if we can get there, and we're just going to point out some things that we think we can improve on from last year to get there.
Damn, we just jumped up from it was going slow from 10 to 12 to 29 just now. And I know we're going to get some heavy hitters tonight, man. I think Lake Travis is playing Arlington Martin. I think that's being televised from on ESPN, if I'm not mistaken, on the Geico kickoff. I think they're playing at Ranger Stadium. Not to take you away from here, man, but you can watch your YouTube video or YouTube live on your phone while you're watching the game on television. I think women's soccer is playing. If I'm not mistaken, women's soccer is playing number 1 Duke tonight too as well. There's just some heavy hitters out there tonight. So we're going to get through this, but a couple of shout outs, man, before we start. All right. I got 2 shout outs. One, I know one person's not going to be watching this tonight. If you know her, Miss Queenie B on Twitter, Candace, she's usually in here raising her hand when she's here. She's enjoying her, I guess, last weekend away there in South Beach. So she hit us up on DM on Twitter and told us that she's going to be eating, I guess, at a restaurant tonight while the show's going on. And my question to her is, why couldn't you put your phone on the table and just watch us while you're eating? Probably not a good thing in South Beach. But we appreciate her. I know she'll go back and watch it. And I don't do this a lot, man, but Tracy Williams, I know he's actually a football ref. I think he's working tomorrow, Friday, and he said he might be working on Saturday doing some junior varsity and varsity games. He's actually doing a 6-man game tonight, small 6-man game tonight. That should be pretty fun. Probably going to have him worn out by the end of that one. But we linked up last night. I want to thank him for the drinks and the food. I really do appreciate it, man. Some really good, Texas football talk last night at dinner. He was grilling me all kinds of things, man. But one thing he's concerned about is obviously the kickers, just like I am, man. And we'll get into that, obviously talking about Steve Sarkisian's press conference.
You did 2 shout outs. I want to do one. So haven't had a show since we went over 4,000. And just want to thank the viewers, subscribers, members of this channel for first becoming subscribers to the channel, becoming members of the channel, coming to watch our videos. We really appreciate that. You helped us reach our goal of 4K by opening day. So I want to shout out everybody who comes in and out of this channel and supports me and Clint the way that you do. We really, really appreciate that as well. So shout out to you. Got over that 4,000 goal, looking to achieve another goal, looking at a pretty high goal. Let us know if you think we can make it. It's 6K by Red River. Again, we're competitive folks, played ball all of our lives. So once one goal is achieved, once one Saturday victory is complete, then you got 24-hour rule and you start looking to continue to get better. And And that's no different with this channel. We're still trying to put out great content, and really want to thank you guys for allowing us to come into your rooms, to come into your homes, wherever we're at, and giving us a chance to talk Texas football with you.
Yeah. So real quick, I want to kind of get to this real quick. I think it's important because we obviously want to, shout out our producer as well. Jeremy's wife Colleen there, she actually made some new emojis for our inner circle members as well. I actually seen them. First time I seen them was tonight when I got on here, and they were thrown up on the YouTube channel on this live. But there's new ones, man. We got Bijan, a Bijan emoji, and I think it's a Quinn Ewers emoji, and you can actually see the mullet on this guy, man. So he can't cut his hair because then we got to go back and change those, man. But I definitely appreciate her, man. She does a lot of work behind the scenes, kind of like Jesse from Late Kick with Josh Payne. He's always shouting him out and stuff. I think I've really never seen him before, and y'all haven't seen Colleen. We're gonna get her on the channel at some particular point. She's not a made up person, I promise. Jeremy's married to her, but I appreciate. We'll get to there, and I want to get to another, man. We're gonna go ahead and start. Guy, I've been watching this for a while and really supporting this here. Real quick, my older brother's cancer is back and has spread to multiple areas. I'm asking for some prayers for him and his kids. Hook them. Obviously, prayers from us, our channel, what we do here, man, and I can tell you prayers from Longhorn Nation, man. We're with you and your family, Scott, man. I know you've been supporting us a lot, since you've been with us, and we're gonna definitely support you in this time. Okay, so prayers to you and your family. And his family. Yeah,
and let us know if there's anything we could do. Hit us up in any platform, DM. Let us know if there's something specific we can help with. Really appreciate you. Like Clint said, continue to support this channel from pretty much day one. Prayers go out to you, Scott, and your family.
Yep. All right, man. Let's get into this Sarkisian press conference. I'm gonna tell you, Jeremy's been doing all the work behind the scenes too, man. I'm just kind of showing up like talent here. So Jeremy's doing all the work, man. I got to shout out to him, man. I really do appreciate him. He's a good partner on here, man. Not just a brother, but a partner on this channel. He's been behind the scenes kind of pushing these things out. Jeremy will get emotional, so I can't go too far on this, right?
No.
I just want to know real quick. He will get emotional. So I'm going to stop it there. I appreciate him. He's the one that, has been doing a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, getting all of our notes ready for the channel and so on and so forth. But we're going to start talking ball pretty soon, so we don't get too emotional on here tonight.
Yeah, let me stop him real quick because he says it very well. It's a passion project for us, and when I have time off from, and again, you guys know I'm in the military. I'm clearing one unit, and then I go on a block of leave on September 30th. It's going to take me all the way to September 14th. And we love this program. We're really invested in this program more than we ever have been because we know individuals on this program. We know the kids that are going to be competing on Saturdays. And so it's easy for me. Like sometimes I do get tired, but watching their press conferences, looking at stats, watching film, we love football. We love the game. We love the program. And again, we're more invested in this program than we've ever been because we've had conversations with these guys, met them, shook their hand. They've given us 30 minutes of their time sometimes, like David Gabenda, Anthony Cook, who happens to be on the thumbnail tonight, sharing their thoughts with us. So we're more invested in this program. So that's the way I look at it. It's not laborious. It's not something that I have to work hard to do. It's something that we enjoy doing, and it comes to fruition when we get the chance to come on here and talk to you guys who share the same passions that we do.
All right, let's talk ball.
Cool.
Man.
Let's talk ball.
Here, talk ball. Let's talk ball, man.
Hell yeah.
All right, so we had Sark's press conference today. He's been short on his press conferences, man, about 15 minutes. I think the last two, man. He's getting in there and getting out of there. He's preparing for game week. He's getting these guys prepared for game week. We're doing mock games on Saturday. That's when you also know it's close. Biggest comment Jeremy's got up here is probably the first one, right? Which is said it's two-man battle at this point, and that responsibilities for field goal and obviously kickoff specialist there could be split between two guys, man. Your thoughts, man, on this? I'm gonna tell you, like I said before, when I laid down my head last Thursday night, thinking that one quarterback was going to be the quarterback starter, and then found out Friday that the different quarterback was going to be the starter. I think the only thing that changed was probably the ceiling of games you can win and maybe the floor of the games you could lose. But the only thing I was really concerned about, and we'll get into the stats, this is going to be really a stats-driven show tonight, is when you get into see what really Dicker the kicker did last year from a punting, kickoff, and kicking field goals. That's probably my biggest concern this year. But also going back and looking at the stats of how you did in the red zone, it kind of makes you feel good about not having to worry about that as much. Your thoughts, man, on the kickoff situation?
No, you're 100% correct. When one guy was able to kick field goals, kick the football off, and punt for your team, and again, we're going to go into the net punting. Essentially, this coverage team and his hang time and leg only allowed for 2.8 yards per return last year. So talking field position, he was a weapon in the punt game. And then you're talking about 13 for 15 on field goals. He was consistently knocking them through the uprights and then kicking them out of the back of the end zone. So you lost that luxury. You had one guy that could do all three. Like Steve Sarkisian said, you don't have that anymore. The punter is probably going to be Isaac Pearson. Haven't had that verified. Again, we expect the depth chart to come out sometime real soon to give us names with that. But yeah, it's a skill set that not very many kickers can do all three. And again, if you have a guy that can kick the football off but isn't accurate in kicking the ball between the uprights, then yeah, you got to split duties. But I trust Jeff Banks. I trust Steve Sarkisian in picking the right guy to go out there in that situation. But again, when you scored 55, you scored 70 times last year, 55 touchdowns, 15 field goals. You like that ratio, right? And you just let me grab Sam real quick.
No worries, man.
You like that ratio, and you just want when the guys get down there, they stay short and they can put them through.
Yeah. So again, I think it's big time. And again, when we get into the stats and you see what Dicker the kicker, and I'll just kind of give it away now. 13 for 15. You just hope that when the time is right, you need them that they can show up. You hope that your kicker can kick it into the end zone to not allow the other team to bring it out, because again, that's another stat you kind of look at as well, man. But off of kickers, man, let's get to this mock game. We had talked about it, last live. Kel, I can't remember what day that was. We pushed out so much content. But it's one of these things where it's preparing the team. Does he do it at night? Does he do it in the day? And I think one of the questions they missed on there is, what time do you plan on doing that mock game? Is it going to be in the morning time where you're going to have these guys get up real early and get some breakfast and put them on the buses and do all those things and then get them into the game, or get them into the stadium, walk through the stadium and prep everything towards that? Or is it going to be one of those night ones? Biggest thing for me is, and we had talked about it, is he said he's going to have 40 different scenarios out there that they're going to have to go through, to include TV timeouts, like TV timeouts, damn center's helmet falling off in the middle of the play. Favorite one. Yeah, center helmet falling off in the middle of a play, and then you got to get the next guy prepared. So your thoughts on the mock game, man, and what you really take away from it? Really not so much from players, but coaching staff. I
kind of talked about, wanting to kick it off or do it for a 12 o'clock kickoff. Again, because you want to get them up early, feed them breakfast, get them to the stadium. If it's a 7 o'clock kick, you got a lot of more time to put that stuff into fruition, and you're not rushed, you're not pressed. She just shut him back in here. But my preference was a 12 o'clock game for that mock game, because again, the 7 o'clock window, they get to get up at their normal time. They're eating their own meals in preparation for the game, carving up and getting ready. But so my preference was 12 o'clock, but I like what you talked about is the center's helmet popping off, second team center. You got to get in there and play. Hey, like you said, TV timeouts, making adjustments on the fly when the offense is on the football field, getting over there and going through adjustments on defense, testing the headsets from up top, down below, making sure that time to prep your uniform, get it on, get out there for pregame stretch, get back in the locker room, hear your speech, get back in the tunnel and get out on the football field, figure out where the defensive line's going to stand, offensive line's going to stand, how are we going to execute game day? Because again, you don't want the first time that you're executing all these things to be on the day of a game. You want to go ahead and get those wrinkles out of there as soon as you possibly can.
Something just came to me, man. I'd use Patterson on Saturday as my adjustments guy. That's where I'd use him at, right? If as an offense, I would have Gary Patterson, because you don't want the coaching staff to know what the defense is going to align to your offense, right? So I would have probably not even a script, like Gary Patterson out there, right? Saying, okay, hey, boom. Hey, this is what you're doing. This is what I'm going to do. How are you going to react to this? Both on the offensive and the defensive side of the ball, kind of testing these coaches, man, and sitting here and kind of going through, because a lot of those plays, Steve Sarkisian loves to script the first 10 to 15 plays. He already has them. But what happens when the defensive coordinator adjusts to those 10 to 15 plays that you scripted, right? Because eventually that catches up with you, because eventually they start seeing what you're doing, right? And I think on the defense side of the ball, it's really, okay, hey, this is what the offense is doing. This is what you were unable to really stop last year from a defensive standpoint. All right, cool. This is what I'm going to run at you. What are you going to adjust to? And I think that's where you bring in Gary Patterson to say, hey, you know what? Let me be the guy that calls the plays that you need to adjust for Pete Kwaitkowski and both Steve Sarkisian.
Agreed. You want to throw, because again, this is your last chance before a true game environment. You want to throw as many variables at both the players and the coaches. So yeah, I agree with that. Test everybody. Again, like you said, he's good at scripting the first 15 plays. Our first quarter production on offense showed that last year. Like you said, throw some curveballs at him, make him adjust, get him on the sidelines, talk that up, make sure they can get back in the game and execute the way you want them to, based off your adjustments on the sidelines. Yeah, like it should be a long day on Saturday, the mock game. And like I said, my preference is they start it, at 6 o'clock, wake up, get them to the field, breakfast, whatever, however they do that piece. And then to the locker room, uniform fit. Hey, are you good? You need, bigger shoulder pads. Is your helmet fitting right? All that stuff be ironed out before next Saturday. As the straps have enough, bands to put around his arms to feel good about his performance. Whatever they're going to do on Saturday, just have all the wrinkles worked out before next Saturday against ULM.
All right, so talked about the mock game. Let's talk about these impactful freshmen, because that was the next thing on the board, man. Which is, we talked about it. So you can almost pencil in, right? We don't see it. You don't see a depth chart yet. You can almost pencil in Kelvin Banks at left tackle, and you can almost pencil Cole Hudson in at right guard at this point. But one that we didn't nail down at all in the 2 deep would have probably been Ethan Burke, man, right there out of Westlake, man. Obviously, Sark's comments was he's been a welcome addition to the team with length, rush ability, and being tough-mindedness. He's found his way into the 2 deep, and when he's in there, he does some positive things. Who would have thought that Ethan Burke, at 6'7", probably 215 pounds, 220 pounds, would have found himself in the 2 deep when he was probably the ones that probably needed to develop a little longer into the position he's going to currently play, which is edge rusher. Again,
Texas has shown propensity to have guys that are lower down their recruiting rankings. Talked about Savion Red the other day. We're talking about Ethan Burke today. Yeah, me and you had Jamon Tapp and Justice Finkley vying for freshman the 2 deep at the edge position. But it doesn't surprise me. Nothing surprises me about what this 22 class can do. Again, talking to Mike Roach about Savion Red in particular, and I'll probably reach back and ask him about Ethan Burke and why because he was a two sport player, was a lacrosse guy, and then found football. If you talk to Connor Robertson, we had him on the show. That was his toughest matchup, was a guy that lined up across from him. He told us that back then. But so nothing really surprises me about this coaching staff's ability to evaluate talent, regardless if it's a 5-star all the way down to whoever they bring in this program, who might not be as coveted or have as much attention in the recruiting circles, to come in here and perform. But again, we thought it was going to be Tapp. We thought it was going to be Finkley. Finkley's name got brought up today. Steve Sarkisian said we had to go back and have a conversation because his performance kind of waned here and there. Again, you want consistency. Again, you're talking freshman, and he said it's hard to remember that Justice is a freshman because of how mature he is. So you talking about Ethan Burke coming in and finding his way in the 2 deep and performing. I don't care where it comes from. I just care that on Saturdays we line up the best 11 guys or best 22 guys on each side of the football, and they go out and compete and win football games. But like when his name came up today, I was a little surprised, only because you haven't heard a lot about Ethan Burke, coming out of fall camp from the places where we read stuff.
Yeah, but it also tells you kind of where you are on that defensive end place, man. It's one of those things that you're going to have to turn over really, really, really fast. Is because you don't have the bodies there. You've done it in this last class, bringing in the guys you was talking about, Jamon Tapp, Justice Finkley, Ethan Burke. The whole day, like 7 or 8 defensive linemen is what they brought in this last class. So they knew it was position. They had to turn over really fast. But again, I don't think his peak's going to be this year. If they start him on the 2 deep, he's obviously showed them something in practice. Who was it that said he's that he's difficult to go against? I think it's Jatavian Sanders, right? At tight end. He's like, this dude is really his length and his speed is Jatavian Sanders said he's rough. He's rough and he's tough, man. And Jatavian Sanders is a big guy, man. I think he's gonna have himself shot to win that Mackey Award, right, for tight ends at the end of the season, man. I think that's where Jatavian Sanders is going to land at. So, go ahead, Jeremy.
And you knew these young guys at edge would have the ability to compete to find themselves on that 2 deep. When you talk about moving DeMarvion Overshown down to create pressure from the edge, you knew that they were trying to manufacture it. And if these guys, regardless, like I said, regardless of who it is, what name it is, can come in and find themselves on a 2 deep and be impactful on Saturdays, get them out there and let them go. But like we said, we're just a little surprised because the recruiting ranking said it should be Jamon Tapp or Justice Finkley, but get them out there and let them work.
And Cody Phillips is saying it. Ethan Burke, Savion Red, Byron Murphy are all very good evaluations by the coaching staff. And that's what you need. You have to be able to evaluate guys. You're not going to – if you can go out there – again, we were talking about Savion Red, man. I went back and watched this film this last – a couple of days ago, and we were really talking about him in the last show. He was just a tweener guy, based on size. You don't know what position specific he's going to play. Does he have the skill? Absolutely. Does he have the athletic ability? Absolutely. You're talking about a guy that played on one of the top 7-on-7 teams in the state of Texas, going out and playing, 7-on-7 against some of the nation's elite football players. One of them being Matthews and Bryce Anderson there with the Bootleggers out of Louisiana. And he was doing his thing against them. And they're one class ahead of him. So you know it's there. But if you don't land those 5-star guys or those high 4-star guys, you've got to be able to evaluate talent at that 3-star, 4-star level to guys that you think are going to be a good fit for your scheme. But also, they may not start off a 3 or 4. They may not start off a 5-star, but you can work them or develop them into that 5-star based on what their ability is at the current level that they're playing.
And we've seen that. If you go back and look at Texas class on 247, the composite, if you go start looking down the list, like Jalen Ford's a great example of another kid who was under recruited or lowly or had a low evaluation or a lower evaluation by the recruiting services and come in and been impactful. And I expect them to play really, really well this year. But there's a ton of them. Savion Red, I think I said, was 1,442 in the nation. And not really evaluating. And like we said, we reached out to Mike Roach, and he said exactly what you said, is we didn't have a true position pinpointed for him and no verified track times. So it just wasn't the position. It was the certified athleticism that they're looking for. But again, I want game film. I want to see him because again, there's a difference between track speed and football speed. You start putting pads and a helmet on and running cleats and running on grass, there's a difference there. So I would lean, and that would be, and we'll have Mike on soon, but something that I would ask him, why so much on the verified 40 time or 100-meter time or shuttle time and not necessarily so much, given to their performance on the football field. Because you could definitely see, like Jonte Cook, I was watching his film because I'm kind of working on some more stuff for the channel later on this year. But watching his film, and you can definitely see against athletes like Duncanville how fast he is, when he gets off the ball against press man coverage. So, just one of those recruiting questions that I want to ask Mike for evaluation, why they pick certain players, but again, regardless if it's the last guy in the 22 recruiting class or the first guy in the 22 recruiting class, get as many athletes in here that can compete on Saturdays, and like you said, that play well in your system, because that's truly what you're evaluating. You can see that with Kyle Flood's evaluations and what he likes to bring in as far as offensive linemen. Trevor Gooseby, Connor Stroh, and those guys aren't the highest currently in recruiting service evaluations. I think Trevor's on his way to getting his 4-star. I read that today, on 3. But you see what body type he's looking for: 6'5", 6'6", 335 to 345 pounds, because that's what works best in his system.
Yeah, and you go back to Byron Murphy that obviously played at our alma mater, DeSoto, in DeSoto High School in DeSoto, Texas. It's one of those things. He had a 5-star. He had a 5-star that was on the same defensive line he was. There was a monster, you know what I'm saying, that went out east to Texas A&M. They were on the same one. But if you go back and look at film, and you look at games, you've seen in multiple games where Byron Murphy kind of took those games over, and he stayed in the backfield the entire time. So, again, one of the things that if you go back and you look at, Washington and what Pete Kwaitkowski was able to do at Washington with the guys that he has, and you're definitely getting higher star guys at University of Texas than they did at Washington, and what they were able to do. And I think some of that goes back to, Jimmy Lake, which was the co-defensive coordinator there, and the defensive backs coach guy. I think those guys were able to bring their guys in and be able to develop them, because if you look at his rate in which he was putting guys in the NFL from Washington, it's a lot more than what Texas has been putting in the NFL. So I think Pete Kwaitkowski has a really good eye of finding guys, evaluating guys that fit his scheme, and developing those guys to go on to the NFL. But again, and I talk about Gary Patterson a lot. Gary Patterson has a role in that. He's sitting there at those recruiting things. He's looking at film, and he's a hell of a talent evaluator too, because he did a lot less. He did a lot more with a lot less for 2 decades at TCU, as we've seen. So definitely excited about that. Let's talk about this offensive line, man. Maybe we can nail that down now. You want to nail it down?
Let's do offensive line, and then we'll hop into 2021.
Okay. All right. So we're looking at obviously the emergence of this Steve Sarkisian in his press conference today. I think the emergence of Kelvin has been helpful at left tackle, meaning he's going to be on that. He's going to be starting at left tackle. Said that allowed them to be able to use Andre Carrick in other places. So I think the battle is. So I think if you named it today, let's go through the offensive line. Left tackle is going to be Kelvin Banks.
Yep.
Left guard is going to be Hayden Connor. Your center is going to be Jake Majors. Your right guard is going to be Cole Hudson. And then your right tackle, I would say probably Christian Jones at this point. And I think it's almost Andre Carrick and Christian Jones fighting it out. But if I was to say who's going to start today, I would have Christian Jones there. So I think that is going to be your starting 5 on the offensive line. And we said it. Who you may see 1, you may see 2. Hell, at some particular point this year, you may see another true freshman jump up and take a starting role. Because just because the season starts doesn't mean they're not evaluating the guys that they currently have.
Yeah, Jake Majors talked about it in his media availability that Cole Hudson was taking snaps at center. If they truly don't trust anybody else to man that we haven't talked about, you could possibly have, if the helmet pops off and Cole Hudson has to go move over to center, DJ Campbell moving into that right guard to replace Hudson. So that would be your 3 freshman offensive linemen on the line at the same time. And if DJ Campbell continues to progress, Jake Majors was asked about this week about being undersized against nose tackles in the conference, mainly the guy out of Baylor, who's heavy. And I really appreciated Jake Majors' comments talking about, I'm undersized against just about every nose tackle I'll come against, but they're not going to outwork me. That I'm going to work really hard to keep them, from making tackles in the run game and getting them out of the holes that we need to get to, and to keep them out of the backfield. So I really appreciate that. But there may come a time when Cole Hudson ends up being the center of the University of Texas Longhorns, and Devin Campbell, DJ Campbell ends up being the right guard. And then you have Banks, Connor, Hudson, DJ Campbell, and then, like you said, Carrick or Jones outside holding down. And again, Cam Williams is probably going to be on that 2 deep when it gets released too. There's a chance that he may be in that 2 deep as well. I'm just so excited about this 22 class and how they've come in, and maturity seems to be the word that's stated by everybody, whether it's a player or coach. Hey, what about Cole Hudson? Hey, he came in with the mature mentality. He picked up our offense really, really quickly. He wants to be one of our guys. It's just this 22 class is done exactly what we asked them to do, and that's come in and try to compete and take jobs. And it's either they taking that job, like in the case of Kelvin Banks, or in the case of Ethan Burke, a guy we talked a little bit earlier about, they're pushing guys at the front of that depth chart for playing time. And so, again, we're going to figure out exactly, the Kool-Aid is in, but we're going to find out exactly in a week and a day exactly where we stand with this football team.
Yeah, you just said it, man. Brandon Banda here. He said, I think Flood absolutely hit a grand slam last cycle, like 5 NFL offensive linemen from the 7 taken. Hell, it may be 7 at some particular point. I think some guys are probably on a longer development. And I think that's why you were able to, in the 23 class, get some more developmental guys. It's going to take them a little longer because you're going to have these guys. You think about this, man. Just like you got Xavier Worthy last year that did what he did on the football field as a true freshman, you got Xavier Worthy for another 2 years before he can even think about going to the NFL this year and next year. You're talking about having the same 5 offensive linemen for the next 3 years, 4 years, and then moving on to some developmental guys that Kyle Flood. But you got to think about Alabama. What was he able to do with that offensive line at Kyle Flood? He went on to win the award for the best offensive line in the country.
I want to say you put me on the spot. I know what it is. No, I wanted to say the Mackey, but I know that's for the tight end. We'll eventually get it, but
yeah.
But he
did. He had the best offensive line at Alabama, and he knew exactly what kind of offensive lineman he needed to bring into the program to have the same success. But it's not just for here. These guys, more than likely, when we get to the SEC, if it's 2024, we're at 22, 23, they'll play in the Big 12. You're talking about guys that are juniors in the 24 season that are probably going to be going to the SEC as, guys that have a lot of experience. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Real quick. So guys are throwing out Lombardi and they're throwing out that's for an individual, if I'm not mistaken. But Clint's talking about I think it's the Joe Moore Award.
Joe Moore Award.
Yep. That's the one for the outstanding unit.
Yep.
And again, Robertson, Ogbo, Umeozulu and Williams are guys that we're not hearing their name because they're not DJ Campbell, Kelvin Banks, or Cole Hudson, guys that are already on the 2 deep. But these guys are really good football players. And that, like I said, out of these 7 guys will have an impact on the University of Texas probably for multiple years before they leave. And like you said, some of them will be drafted. Who they are at this particular point, I don't know. But some of them will get drafted. And I did see a $5 super chat that just said, hook them.
Yeah.
And Brandon, we really appreciate your attendance. We appreciate you coming in here and your donation to Texas Football Talk. We really appreciate it. 9 days away, brother.
Yeah, that's it, man. All right. So you want to get into this? You want to get into the stats?
Yeah, let me share my screen real quick.
Uh-oh. Here we go. Texas Football Talk's trying to share screens.
Hey, we're there.
We don't lose our mic here. We're here?
We're there.
Maybe. We're there.
All right. So the first stat we want to look at is, of course, let me get over here and highlight the right stuff, is this one, right? How do we go from 5-7 to that 8-3, 9-4, 10-2 mark that we think? You got me over there?
Yeah, I got you, man. Yeah.
All right. So the first
here.
thing we are going to talk about, Clint. So because I'm sharing the screen, you're going to have to tell me what our talking points are.
Oh, I do. Oh, goodness.
I know the first one. I know the first one is this, right? So Texas outscored their opponents by 50 points. And again, you'll say, or some folks will say, yeah, you beat Texas Tech 70-35. Again, with a point differential in your favor, you should not have a losing record, in my opinion. You beat Texas Tech 70-35. That's 35 points to the 50, but you got to find ways to pull out ball games that are tight and or dominate. Use that offense to get out in front like you always do with that scripted Steve Sarkisian playbook. And then as you go through the football game, don't go 3 and out for 4 or 5 consecutive, possessions. So again, we want to get this margin wider, but that's a good, right? That's a good thing that we did last year. We outscored the opponent by 50 points for the year. And Brandon just threw in another $20 and just said he appreciates us. So thank you very much, Brandon, for that. Your thoughts on the scoring differential and how we win more football games with it?
Yeah, I would. If you look at the scoring differential, it's going to obviously be flipped from the first half to the second half, right? Because in most games you were on top. In some games wide margins, right? And then all of a sudden you go into the second half, and we used to call it turtling Tom, right? Where you'd go into a shell and you're putting yourself in a position where you're not as aggressive as you were in the first half and the second half. And obviously these defenses are making adjustments. So I think a couple of things it comes down to is if you're gonna have a margin of 50, I think it needs to be a margin of 50, but it needs to be both first half, second half specific. And I think where we see the margin this last year was really in the first half, second half of the year is probably in the negative, because that's where teams were able to make adjustments and come back. There's no way when I look at the top line, when you're talking about points per game, 35.25 points per game. We used to talk bad about Oklahoma, right? Because they put up like 47 points a game, right? But then their defense was horrendous. To me, again, I go back to the defense, and we'll talk about some defense stats here in a few minutes, but there's no way that you only win 5 games where your points per game is 35.25. But again, you have those 2 outliers, Rice and Texas Tech, where you scored 70 points. This team is going to score over 35 points per game this year. I have them somewhere probably between 38 and 40. Hell, you may hit the 41 mark. Probably not much more than that. But I think that 3-point difference is obviously going to make your margin go up when you're talking about, scoring margin go up between you and your opponents. But I think it really comes down to those second half adjustments and making sure that it's teetering to both sides, that you're winning both sides of that margin, not just in the first half, which I'm pretty sure if you go back and look at the stats, they're backwards. The next one we're going to talk about is 17. Obviously, the 17 first downs by penalty is huge, especially when you're only getting 13 by penalty. Some of these could be, and I'll start with this one, Jeremy. You can kind of clean it up for me. I think some of it, I'm okay with the penalty down the field, right? If a cornerback gets beaten on coverage, I'd rather have a holding or a pass interference or a PI versus somebody taking, a bomb, getting behind me, and now they've scored in one play. But 17 penalties given up, 17 penalties that turned into first downs are probably in places, and going back to really third down, right? Second and long or third down, and allowing teams to be able to keep the ball longer. And when we get to that stats, when you're talking about who held the ball longer and who had more snaps, this is a problem, because now you've given 17 free opportunities to the offense, to the opponent's offense, to continue to drive the football down the field when you probably had an opportunity to stop them probably on second or third down.
Yeah, and this is where communication, I agree with you. That's where the college game is a little different than the pro game. Pass interference and the pros gives you the ball at the spot, or if you pass interference in the end zone, to put the ball on the 1 yard line. It's not that way in college. Again, if guys beat me on a 50-yard, on a post route 50 yards down the field, and the only thing I could do is pull them down, and all it cost me is 15, I'll take that type of penalty. But we've heard nothing but, communication, discipline, togetherness, knowing where you're supposed to be at the snap of the football to help you not have to, calls a first down via penalty. And again, with time of possession being important and your offense being the most explosive unit on your football team, you want them to have the ball most of the football game. We'll talk about time of possession a little bit later. But getting off the football field, again, you get them to third down. Coburn said this the other day. It's not about getting to third down. It's about getting off the field after you play the third down. And again, this is one of the areas we can clean up. What that number looks like, I couldn't tell you. I got to know how many defensive possessions we're going to have to, or defensive possessions and defensive plays we're going to have to work against. But again, they have more first downs via penalty than we do. So that number's got to change, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. So the next one is really bad. So for those that don't want to hear something really bad, go ahead and close your ears. Just don't turn off the show. You can just mute us for a second. But the next one's going to be 5.2 yards per carry. I'll let you go ahead and start with this one, Jeremy.
So, again, 5.2 yards per carry. Again, if they run the football on first down, they get 5 yards. It's pretty easy. Hey, second down and 5, the offense is able to do anything they want to do. They can, go with their short passing game. They can hand it off again. If they get another 5 yards, then they never see third down. So the point behind 5.2 yards per carry, and again, that's what we rushed for. And we had a pretty potent offense. The column to the left is Texas performance. The column to the right is the opponents. So you would think that would be pretty good because that's what we averaged. But again, I want this number to be around 4.5. And what I needed to do is I needed to force offense to be in 2nd and 8. I need our first down. If they choose to run the football on first down, I need to have negative plays. I need to have tackles for loss. I need to have tackles made right at the line of scrimmage to, again, force them to tell me, hey, 2nd and 10, 2nd and 9, I'm gonna be forced to pass. Because again, we're gonna go down this a little bit further, and we're gonna find that Texas, when teams completed a pass on them, which is at a pretty high rate at 68%, they only caught the ball for 7.7 yards per reception, which is pretty low in the grand scheme of things for passing attempts. But negative plays on first down, at the line of scrimmage plays on first down. And again, I think that's why they're kind of, they're talking about pressure from the 1 and the 3, shooting the gaps with a guy like Byron Murphy, shooting the gaps with a guy like Vernon Broughton, shooting the gaps with a guy like Alfred Collins to try to, get the ball carrier taken down the backfield versus that first contact being 3 or 4 yards away from the line of scrimmage. They just got to fall forward to get to this 5.2.
I think, and I'm going to go up. I'm going to go up a couple of stats here. And I know it's what's on our list here, but I want to go up to this 235 yards lost, about 2,666 yards gained. That number needs to go up, and I think if I'm in the college game, that 235 yards, most of this is going to come from the rush because you had very little no pass rush last year, and sacks count in lost yardage at the college game. So biggest thing for me is I want to see that number go up. I think it needs to consistently. It probably could stay the same, 235 yards lost in the rush in actual rushing attempts. But I think when you're looking at total yards lost this year, that number needs to go up quite a bit because you need to find a pass rush, allowing you to get, stop them in the back yards, obviously creating longer, second downs and longer third downs, so that they can't run off 5.2 yards carry on third down to get a first down.
Again, you want them chasing the change. You want them to be behind the change whenever possible. And again, that's why if they choose to pass on first down, a sack would be a great thing. A holding call on the offensive line would be a great thing. If they choose to run the ball, a tackle for a loss or a tackle at the line of scrimmage would be valuable, again, because longer down the distance on second and third down kind of helps the defense in deciding exactly what the offense is going to try to do to get a first down eventually.
All right, so the next one's actually a good one. Let's go down to yards per reception and talk a little bit about yards per reception, but let's also talk about touchdowns allowed. So if you look at it here, you're talking about 7 point. What was it? 7 point. I'm trying to get to it here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 7.13.
7.13 yards, and then 16 total touchdowns over 12 games. So most of the offensive output from most of your opponents was in the run game. So that tells you if you get some run stoppers in there and you minimize both the yards per rush, but you're also minimizing how many touchdowns are scored by the rush. If the defensive backs can stay consistent and keep it at 16 touchdowns over a 12 game, 12 game schedule, which is like 1 point and some change. I think the defense can make a jump. I want to talk about the 7.13 yards real quick. At 68%, more than likely these 7.7 yards where the cornerback's playing off of the receivers, kind of dinking and dunking down the field. But it also tells you the tackling abilities of the guys that you currently have at cornerback in both its star. And if you go back and look at the tackling numbers, y'all have heard me say this 1,000 times. The good thing about Anthony Cook and Deshaun Jameson, yes, Deshaun Jameson maybe get beat over the top every once in a while because he falls asleep, not consistent. But the one thing about those two guys is once the receiver gets the ball, they minimized the yards after the catch, which also shows up here in the average per attempt, which was 7.13. As soon as the wide receiver gets the ball, they're bringing them to the turf. Yeah.
And so the 68% that Clint was talking about is the completion percentage by the opponent. So, 255 receptions out of 377 attempts. You hit the nail right on the head. It was we were playing off-man coverage, dink and dunk. It was almost like a death by 1,000 cuts. It was truly bend, don't break defense that broke sometimes because, again, that 5.2 yards per carry led you to a short down and distance to have to throw the football. So they really didn't have to go downfield, which is the 7.13, but they eventually matriculated their way down the football field and put up points against you. Again, they scored 31 points against you last year. So yeah, it was almost like a death by 1,000 cuts. They picked you apart in the short passing game, and then they ran the football effectively on you with short down and distances. So ended up scoring 31 points. But again, like you said, I'd like to see that completion percentage by the opposing quarterback to be closer to 60. And then again, I would love for them to maintain this 16 receiving touchdowns that they did last year. I think it'd be great. So the next thing we're going to go ahead.
Yeah. So the next thing we're going to talk about is obviously touchdown to field goal ratio here, which is I told you, it's going to be good, bad, and ugly. There's going to be some ugly statistics in here. There's going to be some really bad ones, but there's also going to be some really good ones. Anytime that you have a ratio of 55 touchdowns to 15 field goals, you are doing pretty good on the football field. And if you go back and look at red zone, I think it's red zone efficiency. Red zone efficiency. Your red zone touchdowns was 35 you had 47 attempts and you scored 35 times in the red zone. So you had to kick field goals. Out of those 47 times, you only kicked 12 field goals. That is pretty good production. That's pretty good production. Now go back to where we currently are with our special teams, or our special teams guys, and not knowing what you're going to get outside of Dicker the kicker. And I can kind of go to that stat as well. And I know I think there were some other people that kicked field goals during the year as well, but they were 13 for 15. So you're almost spot on, and no telling where those 2 field goals were that you missed. But I think your red zone efficiency will make up for your special teams until these guys get acquainted to playing in front of 100,000 or 60,000, whatever the stands are, whatever the fans are in the stands. I think your red zone efficiency, if it can stay the same this year with the talent you have, I don't see it changing. I actually see it getting better because you can use a Jatavian Sanders, you can use a Billingsley. I think it's an opportunity to actually go up. Your thoughts on that, Jeremy?
No, you hit the nail right on the head. So 13 for 15. So one of those field goals must have been outside the red zone. Didn't. So they got probably to the 30-yard line, kicked a 47-yard field goal. So it tells you that out of the 15 attempts they had, 13 were 12 of those were within the red zone. So he was kicking shorter kicks, right? Most of them were in that 37 to inside 37 yards for Dicker. But yes, a conversion rate of, let me slide down real quick because we're bouncing. 35 out of 47 attempts were touchdowns. Again, 12 field goals. I'll take that all day, every day. Out of times, 47 times they got in the red zone, they put some form of points up 44 times. So that's being productive. When they got the ball down inside the 20-yard line, they didn't turn the football over. That's what it tells me. They went ahead and finished that drive, put some points on the board, and they kicked off the opponents, and the defense did their thing. So I would love for them to maintain this. Again, you'd always like to have a higher touchdown ratio, 40 out of 47 or whatever it may be. But this is a very good one that the 2021 offensive football team put up as far as red zone efficiency and putting the ball in the end zone. Again, that leads to that 35 points a game. You just want that to be carried over 4 quarters and play more complimentary football when you had to. Again, you played really, really well in the first half. There were some times in the late first half, second half where you go drives, 4 or 5 drives in a row, 3 and out. Keeping your defense on the field. And that's kind of where we'll go next is the 66 plays per game. 75 should be the goal. Talking time of possession, which is right here. They possess the ball 32 minutes of a 60-minute game, leaving you the ball 28 minutes. So, yeah, you're pretty efficient when you had the football. You scored a lot of points. But I want to see us win the time possession. I'd like to see us be about 33 minutes to the opponent's 27, or just be even here. Again, we ran 66 plays last year per game. I'd like to see that up to 75. Again, I think it just allows you to play more complimentary football, have your defense off the field, And again, for this 21 group, they didn't have a whole lot of depth. The defensive line didn't have a whole lot of depth at linebacker. Hopefully this 22 class this 22 team has more depth. So it won't hurt them as bad losing a time possession game, but it's never a bad thing when you have the football more than your opponent, especially with this offense.
Yeah, I think so. So kind of moving there, I think going back to penalties again and going back to, allowing, what was it, 17, I think it was 17 first downs based on penalty. And then your plus 15 on, or plus 16 on penalties versus your opponent. I think we got to really watch that, man, because again, if you're allowing these guys to get in front of the chains or allowing them to be able to get first downs based on penalties, because if you have let's say, or get behind the chains, really is what you're talking about on offense. You start off at 1st and 10, then all of a sudden you get a holding call. Now you're in first and 20. It's slowing down your offense. So definitely the average, penalties, we're at 69 last year. Opponents at 53. Me and Jeremy both know you're probably not going to, just like your Oklahoma guys up there, team up north is probably going to complain about the refs and them calling more penalties on them. Me and Jeremy aren't going to disagree with that. I think that the Texas probably gets more penalties called on them than the other teams that they play. But you have to make sure you're trying to play as clean as football game as you possibly can to put yourself in front of the chains, not put yourself behind the chains, but also, not make those boneheaded, mistakes on the field when you have an opportunity to get a team off the field and then you're allowing them to continue drives because you are creating those penalties.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. Like, put yourself in a position to make plays to where you don't have to commit a penalty because, again, like Clint said, Oklahoma, Texas, probably not looked at very well by the league right now for their exit to the SEC. Tracy might argue with us, but I think history shows that we don't get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to the folks wearing stripes. So do what you got to do to not have that happen. Next one we were going to look at was 7 interceptions, right? We talked about the Longhorn defensive backs keeping the opponents out of the end zone with only 16 touchdowns given up last year. But we'd like to see, and we're hearing about this a lot. Hey, communication leads to. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong stat. Real quick, give me just a second. So out of those 255 completions out of 377 attempts, we only got 7 picks last year. And what I was saying was going back to this fall, Jaron Thompson just said it yesterday. He believes that Sean Jamison got 5 interceptions this fall. He thinks that their ability to communicate in the back end is leading them to be in the right spot. We feel like their evolution to press man coverage versus, a lot of zone defense will get them closer to the football. Just got to make plays on it. So your thoughts on just getting 7 picks last year and their ability to increase that number in 2022?
Yeah, again, going back to turnover margin, right? And Steve Sarkisian said in a press conference that wins are based off, if you go back and look at stats and you look at games won versus games lost, and you look at a totality of a season and how many games you've won, he broke it down for you. He's like, if you have, plus 10 turnover, you win this many games. If you have plus 15, you win this many games. If you have plus 20, you win this many games. And I think if you look at Texas, and I'm not sure exactly what the margin was last year, but I think we were, obviously, if you look at it here, we had 10 interceptions to 3, or 10 interceptions to our 7 interceptions. So you're already 3 behind the power curve. And I'm pretty sure if you look at fumbles down there, it probably doesn't get any better. And we'll get to that in a minute. But turnovers matter in games, right? It's one, you get the ball back, but it also changes momentum. When you make big plays, and then with the way that this offense can score, let them get a short field, and your chances of actually scoring, we've seen it in the red zone, right? The chances of you scoring, 7 points is really, really high. You'll take 3 points. But I think if you look at this turnover margin this year, we need to be somewhere between plus 10 and plus 15 in order to get them to the mark we need to get to, which is somewhere between, I say, the floor 8 and 4, to me, the ceiling 10 and 2. In order to get there, you have to have a turnover margin where you're plus 10 in that category.
I wholeheartedly agree. Make plays on the ball. Again, momentum changing. If you get the ball on their side of the football field, there's no doubt in our mind with this team's ability to score. We just talked about their red zone percentage. Get me down there, and I guarantee you points will be scored for our favor. So, yeah, and I feel like Quinn's going to be around this number. I've said it before. 10 interceptions is probably what he's going to give the opponent. So you'd like to have your number be somewhere around 15. You'd like to double this up if you possibly could. And I think, like I said, with the 5 guys who they currently have back there, and we feel will be in that depth chart when it gets released, having the ability to cover, I think this number has the potential to get down, along with that 68% completion percentage by the opponent's quarterbacks. I think we'll be able to get that down, and I think we'll pick off more passes.
If my math's right, and I'm not trying to do math in public, but if my math's right, you were -3 in the turnover category last year, fumbles and interceptions. Can't have that win football games. So, all right, let's move on to the next one, which is a disastrous looking statistic that usually doesn't come to mind.
Which one would you like to see?
Let's talk that fumbles lost there. All right, so we just talked about interceptions, not getting enough interceptions, and then quarterbacks throwing interceptions. I'm talking about a +10 turnover margin. You're talking about Quinn Ewers throwing 10 interceptions. That would mean that we need to, at a minimum, probably get 15 interceptions, reduce the fumbles that we have, and probably pick up the same 7 fumbles that we had last year, which is pretty tall order, right, if you're looking at it. But 15 fumbles, that's like 1 point something fumbles per game. Over there doing math, Jeremy? Like when I seen like 15 fumbles, and I can't remember off the top of my head, and I've watched these games like multiple times, like over and over and over again, and I can't remember where we had 15 fumbles. But to look at the stat here and think, damn, we put the ball on the ground 15 times, and we recovered half of those. We lost half.
Recovered
of those.
7. Yep.
Yeah, you lost half of those. I just can't remember on those games. And at what points were they? What were they crucial times in those games? And I'm gonna have to go back. I want to go back and look at all these football games again, 9 days out from this season. But I just can't remember where you lost a total of 7 fumbles. But what really blows my mind is the ball security of whoever was holding the ball. And it's not all running backs. Hell, it could be wide receivers. It could be a strip sack. It could be a whole bunch of things, right? It could be a Dicker the kicker that fumbled the punt and they returned it. They took it off his foot or something, But 15 fumbles is absolute nonsense. Somebody needs to teach these guys how to carry the ball because we definitely need to limit that this year.
I think it was a lot of center quarterback exchange because you had the revolving door at quarterback because Bijan doesn't put the ball on the ground. And I have a hard time thinking Roschon put the ball on the ground. So I think it might have been a whole lot of center, quarterback exchange, and it might have been a whole lot of quarterback running back exchange. Because like you said, I can't remember a whole lot of fumbles within the play. But I don't want to go back and watch all of 2021, 9 days out from 2022. I'm ready to see live football games this year. But like you said, and I was doing math because you said 15 picks and 15 fumble recoveries for us is just 30 turnovers a year. That's 2.5 turnovers per game. I think we can get 2.5 turnovers per game. Again, if they're talking about this kind of defense that's hawking, that's going to get to the quarterback, it's going to get pressure on the quarterback. I think it's a possibility to get up to 30 turnovers in a season. It's awfully high, but I would like to go back and watch Texas, or look at Texas stats in their heyday to see how many times they got the football when you're talking about running defensive back groups out there like the Griffins, Huff, Terrell Brown, Cedric Griffin, I think those guys turn over the football a lot. But it may be a big number. But all we want them to do is not put the ball on the ground 15 times and to get 7 more interceptions. And we think we'll be closer to getting to that 8-4, 9-3, 10-2 season that Texas football fans definitely want.
That's it, man. We knocked out all them stats, man.
I think so.
We did.
And I would go to the comments box and see if anybody had any feedback for them. Because this is different from our other shows where we generally go through the comments and the chat throughout and talk comments. We just basically wanted to take an analysis of the 21 season, point some things out that were good, point some things out that weren't so good, and looking statistically at what needs to change for the 2022 season. So let me unshare this real quick.
And we're back, man. We're back in here. Texas is not back yet, but we're back in here without a shared screen. All right. Had to change that up real quick because I didn't want to say that. And I'm probably going to get hammered in the comments for that if somebody's watching this at the 59-minute mark. All right. So let's see what we got here. Bijan did fumble against Kansas when He broke his elbow. Understandable. If you break your elbow, there's a pretty good chance you're probably going to lose the ball there. Gregory Sertain, talking about these fumbles. How many fumbles were from quarterback being hit and losing the ball? Probably quite a few. Probably had some strip sacks in there. We got beer cans and baddies in here, man. He's a Georgia Bulldog here, is in here with us tonight. I like when he comes in here. He said, can Arch save the program? I'm thinking that Quinn Ewers is probably going to help us out. And then we pass the torch to Malik Murphy for 1 year. And then we go ahead and patch to Arch Manning and keep it consistently rolling. I think that's my plan of how that's going to work. Talking about how, people talking about games are going to X on kickoff, Hudson and Casey on sacks. Yeah. So again, it's one of those things, man. Fumble got a lot of conversation here, man. Because that's what shocked me when I went back and looked at those stats. We were looking at those stats, and I said 15 fumbles. There's teams out there that fumble the ball 15 times. Like, one of the things you're taught early is ball security, right?
Yeah,
and it confused me, man.
And like I said, I think it was really the quarterbacks. I want to say, center quarterback exchange, like you said, ball pops out on a sack from the blind side. I do want to thank a couple of folks real quick, because while we were doing that, we did get a $20 super chat. I know I mentioned it flying by, but thank you so much again, Brandon, for supporting us. We really appreciate it. And then we did get one new member to the Inner Circle. Richard F. has joined the Inner Circle. We really appreciate your membership, Richard. Again, what comes with that? The perks are in-game chats for members during the football season, streaming games. And again, had the TV behind me. Alabama and OU will be on that television set with the mics on, cameras on, for the members to talk to us during those two football games. Can't wait for that to happen. And just those emojis that Clint was talking about that Colleen makes. Again, DeMarvin Overshone will have an emoji here very soon that will consist of a black felt Stetson cowboy hat. So that'll be his little thing. And then Xavier Worthy, we're trying to come up with something for him. Right now, it's just the X behind him. So those two things will be coming very, very shortly. So thank you for your support. Thank you for your membership, Richard. Thank you for your super chat, Brandon. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. All right, man. Let's see what we got here. I'm trying to just go through some of these chats, man. We're going to go watch that. I think I'm going to turn on ESPNU as soon as I finish here, man. I'm going to go watch Javion Taviano against Lake Travis. I think Lake Travis's quarterback is injured. And I think they're starting their backup quarterback tonight. We got some football games, man. Friday Night Lights is real. If I'd have known, I couldn't have told Jeremy this, but if I'd have known that Denton Ryan was playing down the street against New Braunfels tonight, I probably would have went to that game. I didn't find out till last minute. I seen it on Twitter, but Denton Ryan is actually playing New Braunfels Unicorns tonight down the street here. So that would have been a hell of a game to watch. Unfortunately, the guy that I probably want to go watch is going to another school, but it would definitely been nice to see him, man. I'm pretty sure he's brutalizing that New Braunfels Unicorns team, man, at this point. So
yeah,
DeSoto plays. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, go ahead. No, they play St. Augustine.
Yeah, out of Louisiana tomorrow. Out of Louisiana, that's going to be on the NFL Network. Obviously, your 23 running back and your wide receiver and a whole host of guys that are on that DeSoto football team, because you're starting to get you a little DeSoto to University of Texas with Byron Murphy and
Pipeline.
Yep. Yeah, Pipeline. There's some guys on there that you're going to want to watch, man. There's some 24 guys, some 25 wide receivers. I think one of the top 25 wide receivers that came out yesterday is another guy from DeSoto yesterday. So
I'll tell you how deep the backfield is. Trey's going to start, but Trey's going to share a lot of carries. Bailey, their quarterback. I don't know if y'all have watched Jonte's huddle film, but I went back and watched it again today, and that kid could sure sling it. Don't think he's going to end up at Texas, but there's going to be athletes that have committed to universities all across DeSoto and probably St. Augustine. But yeah, that's another great game to watch. I'll be at Coppers Cove, Georgetown tomorrow. Kick is at 7:30. I'll probably get there early, probably around 6:45. I'll drag Colleen to the game with me. So if you do see me out there, I'll probably have on a polo, Texas polo, probably wear the black one tomorrow, because I know some folks from Coppers Cove do watch the channel. So if you guys are out there, please look me up. I'd like to talk Coppers Cove Bulldog football with anybody who's willing and waiting, because I did spend some time with their staff this past week, Coach Johnson and the staff. And so excited to see that football game tomorrow as well.
Yeah. So you want to talk about to Brandon Morgan here? You pulled this one up, right? Super chat $4.99.
Yeah. So Brandon, it's more difficult on like a telephone, but if you have an iPad or a tablet, or you have a laptop computer, it's very simple. Just go to our homepage, Texas Football Talk, where we have all our videos displayed. There's a join button. There's also a join button on a laptop computer or an iPad. If you're only on a phone, I could send you the link. If you DM us after the show to our Twitter account, Texas Football at TX Football Talk down there, or Facebook, Texas Football Talk. If you instant message us, I will send you the link to be able to join the inner circle, because we'd love to have you. And that goes for anybody in here. If you're interested in joining the inner circle, just hit us up. And you can't get it, we'll shoot you the link after the show.
I want to bring this up, man. Give me your thoughts on Casey Thompson this weekend. Rooting for him, indifferent to him at this point. I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for him all the way until he gets through that Oklahoma game. I hope Casey Thompson gives Oklahoma all the smoke that they want, man. I'm rooting for Casey Thompson all the way through that Oklahoma game. I'm kind of indifferent after that, right? We don't really have anything with the Big Ten there, right? And I have Casey Thompson. Hey, beat Oklahoma, man. I'll be rooting for you. Be rooting for Nebraska against Oklahoma that week.
I would love for him to have that same game line he had against Oklahoma last year. 6 touchdowns would be awesome. Again, anybody who ever leaves this program who had some kind, like BJ Foster going down the road to Sam Houston, I want him to do well. Again, that was one of my favorite ball players when he was here, just because of his ability to stick the running backs or receivers whenever they'd get the football. Now, there was times when he would miss tackles and stuff like that, but anybody who's ever come to the University of Texas who invested time on the football field as they leave, whether 9 times out of 10 through the transfer portal, you want them to do well, except when they play against the Burnt Orange. Like if we were playing Nebraska, of course, I wouldn't want Casey to play well. But any other time, like you said, especially against Oklahoma, go up there and get 6 touchdowns like you did last year.
Yeah. So Steve Sexton, do you hear that he said Nebraska had more talent than Texas did last year on offense? I absolutely don't believe that. Absolutely don't believe that. But again, he's a Nebraska Cornhusker, right? And I think this brings up a comment that Keelan Robinson has made on multiple, one on a Twitter space, right? And I'm not sure if y'all, I'm not sure how many people heard that. He was on a Twitter space, and a guy asked him, do you think we're going to beat Alabama? And his answer was, I know what my football team looks like. I know what their football team looks like. And at the end of the day, we have a really good football team that could compete with Alabama. As a football player, being as competitive as you are, what are you going to say? No, I plan on them beating the hell out of us on September 10th. Absolutely not. Then they asked him about it again on his press conference the other day, right? And they said, they were like, hey, what they say? Are you prepared are you excited about playing Alabama? He says, I don't remember. He says, who's that? Or when is that? He said, when is that? And he was
right.
He was like, when is that? And he was like, well, that's the second game of the week. He said, no, what date? And he said, that's September 10th. Well, I'm not worried about Alabama because that's not the first game. That's one. The other comment from Keelan Robinson, right? Coming from a program like Alabama, where he knows what right looks like, right? It's structured. Everything is there's a culture there. Him coming over here and them asking him about the culture and the program. When you start, and I'm not throwing shade at like Keandre Coburn or the guys that have been around the program for a long time, but we've heard the same things from them over and over and over again about how they're going to be changed, how the culture is different, what the defensive line is going to look like. I think the best comment from Keelan Robinson the other day during his media availability was, I'm not pushing daisies. When they asked him what the culture was like, and he says, we've made a 360, which I think he meant a 180. Me and Jeremy were actually talking about that, from where they were last year to where they are this year as a program, communication-wise, team-wise, family-wise, field-wise. He told them he thinks they're right where they should be at. And then he said, I wouldn't be pushing daisies, meaning he's not going to tell you what you want to hear. He's going to tell you not what you need to hear, or want to hear, but he's going to tell you exactly the way he feels about this program. But to hear that from Caleb Robinson, a guy that obviously came from Alabama and seeing what structure and culture looks like, I think we're on the right path to, getting there.
Yeah. I mean, Steve Sarkisian said it at media day. He said that's the one thing that if he could have changed about 2021, he said it was difficult because, again, the facilities weren't built. They were having meetings up on the terrace there at DKR. There wasn't a whole lot of structure then to the facilities, and the kids didn't have places to meet and stuff like that. But he said that's the one thing he could have took a second shot at, or something that he didn't do well last year for that 2021 team was creating a culture, developing a team. And you've heard every single player say the same thing. We're hanging out more. We care about each other more. We're communicating more. And so like you said, that's coming out in press conferences and media availability, and everybody's coming out with the same message. We'll see if it comes to fruition on September 3rd in this football season. But like you said, I can't wait for another 9 days to see what they're able to do.
Steve Sexton here. Robinson was impressive in his interview, carries himself well. He was probably one of the better interviews that I've seen. The first 10 minutes was about his rap song, his new rap song that's good. They play in the locker room. He said they force him. Who was it? Byron Murphy said it's forced.
Byron Murphy said he said I have to listen to it. He plays it all the time in the locker room.
But Caleb Robinson said he wants that stuff played in the stadium. So the 10 minutes was the first 10 minutes was talking about, his new rap, his new rap single that came out. I think the last, 5 or 6 minutes was actually about football. He said, can we get to football? Absolutely, we can get to football. But I enjoy the rap conversation too. So
my favorite part was him saying, am I looking at you or am I looking at the camera? Okay, the camera. No, he's a good kid. Good kid.
Really good interview. Brandon Veranda here. Do y'all believe our younger offensive line will be physically strong enough to generate a pass to push while run blocking? I know our young guns have the sheer mass size that are ideal. Lack of multiple college strength and conditioning may hurt. They're big humans, man. They're big humans. Do I think strength and conditioning program, being in a strength and conditioning program at a college place, I think it has to do more with diet and lifting weights than just lifting weights itself. We'll find out. Keelan Robinson might not look to September 10th, but Clint's going to look at September 10th as where your true freshman left tackles. He's going to have his toughest game of the season, his second game in. And I think that'll give you an idea about his pass blocking and his run blocking, because he's going to play the best, obviously, defensive end linebacker in the country in that second game.
Yeah, I think they're more apt. I just think they're more apt to be run blockers early on, strength versus pass blocking. I think they're probably further along. If you were to ask Kyle Flood, hey, where do you think your young guys are further ahead? And what do you feel more comfortable with them doing? Is probably coming off the ball and pushing people back. Because, again, they're big and they're strong, and they've been lifting weights for a long, long time. Again, Torrey Becton has not had an offseason with anybody other than Cole Hudson, who is an early enrollee. But, again, he's a guard. And I feel like Kelvin Banks, when you look at the eyes of Connor Robertson, it says, hey, man, this guy's the real deal. Because that's the two that are going to be on the football field to start the football game on September 3rd is Cole Hudson and Kelvin Banks. Do I feel like they can run block well enough to compete with college football athletes? Absolutely. Again, their toughest test is going to come against Alabama on September 10th. But I would say that the guys that line up that play at Tennessee or Vanderbilt or Kentucky are not as good as probably the guys like Cole Hudson and Kelvin Banks. If not, they're not walking to the University of Texas to take starting positions day one, which is what they've been able to do. Yeah, and again, Kyle Flood's experience, Steve Sarkisian's experience said they're good enough, they're strong enough in both facets of the game for me to put them out there to protect Quinn Ewers and Bijan Robinson against the Alabama Crimson Tide on September 10th.
Yeah, I think you said it best when you said that there's other programs out there that don't have a Kelvin Banks, even as a true freshman.
Absolutely.
With 3 years to play in the SEC. Walter Williams here, $2 super chat. Appreciate you, Mr. Williams. Bijan runs for 2,000 and X gets 1,000. Does that equal 10? I won't go that far. We've had a 2,000-yard rusher. We've had multiple 1,000-yard receivers. I think that there's a possibility that Bijan gets 2,000, I would probably be closer to probably a 17, 1,800 number. I think he's going to make an impact in the receiving game. I think that's where you'll see it. Really, it's just yards from scrimmage. I'd probably have Bijan right now, and I know we're going to start doing this as we get closer. I think probably in our next one, I'll probably have Bijan at currently probably 1,700 yards rushing the ball, and I would probably put Bijan at 400 yards, 400 yards in receiving, honestly, because I think that's what Steve Sarkisian is going to do. So I would have Bijan right at about 2,100 yards from scrimmage. Not 2,000 yards rushing, but I'd say 2,100 yards from scrimmage.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good improvement because last year he ran for 1,156.
Yep.
And he received for 295.
200 change. Yep.
Yeah. So let's just say 300 plus 1,150 is 1,450 total yards last year. I'm with you. I don't think he gets enough carries to go over 2,000. Again, they're going to want to distribute the ball. I put that out on Twitter a couple of weeks ago and got roasted, saying that I thought he should carry the ball 25 times a game. I since came back off that and said 25 touches per game. But 25 touches per game at 150 total yards per game get you a pretty nice 125 times 12 is somebody's going to have to help me out with the math. 150 times 12. I think like you, he's at 1,700 yards rushing and probably around 400 yards passing. Puts him over 2,000 all purpose.
All purpose, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, all purpose, but I don't see him getting to 2,000 unless he busts a lot of explosives because I just don't see the per carry rate any higher than 20.
And you got to have a whole bunch of 200-plus yard football games.
Yeah.
to get to 2,000. That's Foreman-type numbers. You know what I'm saying? That's what Foreman did to Texas Tech type stuff. Just put knocking guys out on the way to the end zone. But does it equal 10 wins? I'm not going to go that far. I think your offense is going to be good enough, but can your defense be average? That's where my 10 wins come at. It's really not on the offense side of the ball because your offense is going to be able to score enough points per game. They scored, again, 38, 35 points per game last year, 35.25. You get to that to like 38, 39, 40 points. If your defense is average to good, right, and limit guys, like you've said before, to average of 24 points, which would be a touchdown from what they were last year, that's what wins you 10 games. I don't think two players and their individual yards is going to get you to 10 games. I think it really comes down to the defense is what's going to allow you to win 10 football games.
Yeah, play complementary football.
Good question, though. Appreciate it. Walter. Thanks, man, and the super chat.
Yeah, don't allow them to stay on the football field with 17 penalties for first downs, run 9 more plays a game, be able to run the ball control when you have a lead, and that'll allow the points per game that you give up to go down, and your points to go up and get you to that 10-win mark. But again, that's every football game is different. Every circumstance, every play leads to something different. And again, we'll analyze their statistics per game probably on our post-game shows on Saturday nights and go through why they won by this margin, what led to this. The same way if they were having to lose a game, we'd be able to point out, hey, this particular play on third down kept them on the field, allowed them to score. We'll walk through all those scenarios on the post-game show on a per-game basis. This was kind of a season totality because there's probably reasons, like I said, we scored 70 against Texas Tech, kind of skews the numbers a little bit. Scored a significant amount against Rice, kind of skews the numbers a bit. But we kind of wanted to look at it as a total team effort for the 2021 season, looking at what may be systemic and what needed to be fixed and what needed to be just improved a little bit and what needed to maintain for them to be successful in the 2022 season. But, yeah, I think X will go over 1,000.
Oh, absolutely.
But like you said, it's going to be distribution. I felt like when Nair was the guy, I felt like they were both going to have the potential to go over 1,000. There's nothing that says Jordan Whittington can't get 1,000 yards receiving as long as he stays healthy and his production stays the same as what it was in the beginning of the year before he got hurt last year. But I want as many different guys catching balls, as many different threats. I want it to look like that Steve Sarkisian Alabama offense where I got 4 guys, not saying they're first-round draft picks, but 4 guys on the field that had the potential to bust big gainers and running backs, a stable of running backs like we already have just need to see that overall success.
Not playing paper, rock, scissors for the football, though. Nick Saban.
No, absolutely not.
Nick Saban jumped.
He got in trouble for that.
He got in trouble for that. He got in trouble for that, man. He also got in trouble. They asked him the other day on the Rich Eisen show, what was the worst ass chewing he got from Nick Saban? I don't know if you heard that. So he wanted it was a goal line formation that he wanted Steve Sarkisian to run, but Steve Sarkisian hadn't really looked at his prior offense before coming in, and he had already been establishing his, so he didn't know what that goal line offense looked like. And he said Nick Saban that's probably the angriest he ever got with him during a practice, was because he didn't know the goal line formation in which Nick Saban wanted to run.
Yeah, we're about to get off here. Oh, you pulled up something else.
I did?
Yeah, I thought so. Maybe I did. 104. We're about to hop off here. I know Clint wants to go watch Arlington Martin versus Lake Travis, which I do too, but I also got to go shopping for a few things this evening to help this thing. I'm going to actually go get a new monitor. I know Clint changed his look up a little bit over the last week and moved some stuff around. I'm going to do the same thing in preparation for a package that we're going to try to put together as we get closer to signing day. Not going to spoil the party just yet, but got some things planned for the 2023 class and some videos that we're going to do for that. But please hit that like button before you take off. There's 100 folks in here, 67 likes. Please hit that like button before you go out the door. Please subscribe to Texas Football Talk if you're not a subscriber. Again, we're 9 days away. Got 3 shows coming every week. May drop some tape stuff in there every now and then. If Clint has time, we may hop on if the news cycle wants us to and allows us to. But please hit that subscribe button. Please, like I said, if you have questions about becoming a member of the Inner Circle, please hit us up. Guys gave answers earlier to help out, but let us know if you need assistance with that. We'll be more than happy to help.
Absolutely, man. All right. End of the show, man. You can find us on Facebook at Texas Football Talk. You can find us on Instagram at Texas Football Talk and on Twitter at TX Football Talk. Our DMs are always open in Twitter. So if you just want to have a conversation, you have questions for us, that's the easiest way to reach us, honestly, is Twitter. I know we'll go to the Facebook sometimes. I'm not saying sometimes we go into the Facebook, but it's easiest to reach out us if you have a Twitter account on our DM there. We're always on Twitter. We appreciate y'all listening as always. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hit that like button before you get out of here. We'll see you on Saturday. Right? It's our next show is Saturday. We're trying to keep it consistent for you, so you know exactly when our shows are going to come. So our next show will be Saturday, and we'll pretty much do it it's about post game. So we appreciate y'all listening as always, and y'all have a wonderful night, and have a wonderful rest of your week. Hook 'em.